Right, hey guys, how are we doing? Back another video from Annie News. We got some cut content stuff here now for MUSHOKU Tensei. Season 2 started. This is covering episode 0, which I thought was great. I like that they managed to pull off an episode without Rudy, the main character, being in it, and we managed to find out what happened to his friend. And I feel like it's going to be important. I feel like there's a reason that was in episode 0. Episode 1 was boss. But then this is covering the princess that was in it that, looked after Rudy's friend. I want to say Fitz. I can't remember if that's the name that she gave her or what. Yeah, it was like Fitz the Silent or something like that. Really good episode, but this is like implying that the princess is very, very important, and I didn't get any kind of inkling as to that from the episode. So let's see what was cut out from the episode from the original source material. And make sure you check out my Etsy shop and support the Patreon page.
Out of all the new characters introduced in Season 2, Episode 0, Princess Ariel is by far the most important.
Okay.
She may have taken a backseat to Fitz for the duration of the episode, but in the novels her identity is shown to be much more than just this second princess.
Alright.
She's this lustful, intelligent woman who also happens to be the sole person capable of saving the kingdom from its current path of destruction.
Okay, that sounds very important. That sounds very, very, important.
This wasn't really highlighted during her scenes in the anime, but
No.
it is done exceptionally well through the thoughts of her guardian mage, Derek. And it's that along with some Asuran history that I want to cover here in our first episode of cut content for Season 2. So, as we jump back into
I love that MUSHOKU Tensei's back, man. I love it. And that first episode was great as well. Yeah.
the world of Mushoku Tensei, let's take a look at Princess Ariel and the not included parts of her backstory.
Cool, love it.
All of which is spoiler-free, of course. Let's get started. Episode 0, Part 1. The Princess of Asura and the Angel, covering the extra chapter from Volume 3 of the light novel. For those unaware of where we are, this is the Silver Palace of Asada, the largest, most beautiful castle in the world, located in the largest, most populous city in the world. What looked so elegant and refined on the outside, though, was actually home to this repulsive, never-ending struggle for power.
I did get that vibe because they did mention that, like, what is it? She's so many down the line in line for the throne, and it did make me think that possible. Well, the assassin was sent to kill her, wasn't it?
Day in and day out, the nobles housed within would constantly plot against, deceive, and betray each other. It was a constant war in which absolutely no one could be trusted. One that would remain uninterrupted up until the events of the displacement incident.
Right.
So, with Sylphie's arrival marking the beginning of a
Sylphie, that's her name. Yeah, okay, yeah. And then she calls her Fitz, right?
major shift in the way these wars were waged.
That was class.
It's this episode that begins the story of how all that was set in motion. Starting with Princess Ariel and her usual visit to the Royal Lily Garden. Now, there was a number of other flower-specific gardens from which she could choose from, but the palace's lilies were by far her favorite. So much so that she would come here every 3 days and drink tea with only her guardian knight and mage.
Oh, lovely.
The reason she
Sounds
was never
nice.
accompanied by anyone else was because no one would dare approach her and her unparalleled beauty. You see, as a princess widely considered to be the most beautiful to have ever lived, to even consider doing such would likely be perceived as rude.
Damn, imagine being that hot. Jesus.
So, there wasn't a single person brave enough to try and drink tea with her here. It would only ever be herself and her 2 sworn defenders. As for who those 2 were, the first was her knight named Luke, whose identity is something that will likely be revealed at a later time.
Alright, cool.
All you need to know now is that he's an intermediate rank in the sword god style, still in his early teens, and every woman in the castle can't resist being entranced by him.
Do you reckon it's got something to do with Rudy's dad? I don't know. The sword thing is making me think,
There isn't a single other man in the castle who's admired as much as he is. Moving
So everyone's just hot. Everyone's just really hot, and everyone's intimidated by how hot they are. Love it.
on to Ariel's mage Derek. He was a bit older at around 16 years old, but
Okay.
was only a mid-level noble unlike his knightly counterpart.
And Derek's a nerd that wears glasses, so everyone approaches him with ease. Sorry.
The reason he'd been assigned such a prestigious position was because noble magicians also capable of advanced magic were quite the rarity in just about any part of the world. He was a top graduate from the illustrious Asura Institute of Magic.
Ah, so I'm not wrong.
Now, since no one was ever present to hear what these 3 would discuss, their topics of conversation were always a key interest around the castle. As for what they were talking about today, well, I'm sure it was just as important as it always is. A discussion pertaining to the nipples of a maid Luke had bedded the other day. So, if you didn't quite catch on to what they were discussing here, that was the entirety of their conversation.
Oh.
Luke was describing his encounters with the maid, and Ariel was impressed, suggesting she'd take that same maid into her own bed one day.
Nice. Now you've made me want to smuggle her into my bedchamber somehow. Wow, these are all just like really hot, dirty, flirty. Right. Okay, I didn't get that vibe from them at all in the anime. Although there was that moment, but then it was like joking. You know, when like her and Fitz are in the bed. I felt very awkward at one moment, and then I was like, oh, thank God.
You may not have picked up on instead, though, was the fact that both Ariel and Luke were quite the lustful individuals. In fact, most, if not all, Asura nobility were like this. Since the Asuran kingdom had never experienced war or famine within its entire 400-year history, a large majority of nobility took part in this scandalous behavior.
Of course.
As for Ariel and Luke in particular, both had a habit of preying on the palace's maids and the daughters of mid-rank nobles. For Luke, this was...
Oh, so they do... Oh, God. So they do actually normally go ahead with what she...
It's rather common knowledge, but for Ariel, not many were aware that she was both bisexual and a sadist. That being the case, the life she lived was a carefree one filled with pleasure. She couldn't care less for the devious plotting taking place within the castle, but instead basked in a more refined simplicity. It was a core aspect of Asura as a whole, since the nation was known for their indulgence in the more decadent things. So much so that they refined...
I guess Soka's smiling there, like, should have had the swing, like, you know, his crotch glows.
Taste had actually become this elite kind of status symbol for them. Now, a very important thing to note about Ariel is that, while she is fourth in line to the succession of the throne, as the only true daughter of the queen consort, she's actually the one and only fully legitimate heir to the throne.
Oh.
The rest are half-siblings born from mothers that aren't the true queen consort.
Losers.
This isn't something widely discussed, because if that news was to ever reach someone like Gravel, then it would only be a matter of time until assassins would come for her. I mean, it was already bad enough that nobles were constantly swearing fealty to her. It's not like they knew that she was the true heir, but their own self-interests painted the image that she was vying for the throne herself, which, as we know, she wasn't. So, Ariel simply preferred to live her life the way that she wanted. To even consider participating in this power struggle was just absolutely absurd to her.
Wait, it says here, she's literally saying that who I'm third in line of succession, but Annie just told her she's fourth. I'm confused.
It didn't really matter how high up she was in the succession ladder, because to her there was no way she'd ever stand a chance against her brothers.
Okay.
She was just too young and had too few allies. Thus the reason she instead chooses to indulge herself in the simple pleasures. Now, they didn't really show this in the anime, but the reason Derek so vehemently fought against that idea was because he truly believed Ariel could bring positive change to the kingdom. It's not that the first or second prince were unworthy successors to the throne, but it's just that their position as king would be simply ordinary. Sure, they'd become respectable rulers like all the others before them, but their standard approach to ruling would mean that nothing would change. The Asuran kingdom would continue with that constant power struggle like it always has. Nobles would continue to plot against each other without consequence, and all that time, energy, and money spent doing so would be wasted instead of actually being put towards something useful. Asura wouldn't march towards progress like all the other nations surrounding them, and there was no doubt that that would eventually lead to them becoming vulnerable to foreign influence. If you're wondering why no one has tried to warn against this, well, that's because no one has really seen the need to. You see, in the 400 years of the Asuran kingdom's history, not once have the people living within ever gone hungry. There was never a time when the people had become so discontent that they felt the need to rise up and change anything.
Well, that's a hell of a long time to just be living so carefree, man. Jesus. Wow.
So, with nothing out there to challenge the status quo, the nobility saw zero need for anything to change. Instead, they spent all their time focusing solely on the progression of their own status, resulting in the kingdom itself becoming stagnant. Now, there was still progress being made in the fields of magic and technology, but that progress was nowhere near close to that which was being made by their neighbors. The King Dragon Realm just south had already overtaken them in technological development, and the Magic Nation's research in the arcane was accelerating far faster than their own. So, even if the Asura Kingdom still had overwhelming advantages in other areas right now, there was no telling where their position would be in a century or so. I mean, even now, the King Dragon Realm was already looking for any weaknesses.
I thought that said Shroom Kingdom then. It's like, what? But it does not. So it's not as funny as I thought it was.
So they could claim the Asuran Kingdom's land as their own. The nobles believed the mountains lining its border made invasion practically impossible, but if technology made something like that negligible, then it really was only a matter of time until some foreign power tried to intrude on their own. That being the case, Derek believed Ariel to be the only person capable of changing Asura for the better. The way he perceived her intelligence and wit outshone all the others he'd ever come across before. It was actually the very reason he applied for this position in the first place. He felt she could become a ruler like Goddess Freyan, the woman who'd led humankind during the latter stages of the Laplace War. As a ruler beloved by pretty much everyone, Derek truly believed Ariel could do the same. I mean, she already had quite a few people willing to lay down their lives for her. So really it was just a matter of making herself more influential.
Can't wait for Rudy to finally meet, I'm just going to say Fitz, I've forgotten the name already. God damn it. God damn it, I'm terrible with names. Can't wait to see how this influences Rudy's journey.
Now, as Derek continued to ponder the best path to make Ariel queen, he had actually stepped out to go to the bathroom. And it was while there that he just so happened to overhear two individuals scheming against Ariel.
Oh no.
He didn't know who it was that was talking, but they did mention how Gravel viewed her as a threat. Something about her popularity with the common folk being greater than his own. That fact was a little strange considering her lack of interest in politics as a whole, but they couldn't rule out that she could be laying the groundwork for something bigger. Really, it was all just due to Ariel's natural charisma. It wasn't her intention to become this public icon, but because she liked to show face at numerous external functions, it was only natural that people become infatuated with her. So, seeing as how it was best to solve this problem sooner than later, the two shady individuals decided they should make the arrangements now, leading Derek to want to storm out and kill these men immediately. But with no basis on why he was doing so, to the rest of the nobles it would just look like Ariel taking action against her brother.
Yeah, and it would make her look bad, and then, oh, nosies.
An open act of hostility that would surely lead to their demise. That being the case, Derek felt it best to go back and simply warn the princess. Since her brother was already planning to force her into this, the only option she had left was to face it head on. At least that way they could plan more accordingly together. So, as he hurried back to the garden, Derek's mind contemplated on whether he'd be able to protect the princess or not. Sure, he'd said multiple times he'd lay down his life for her, but when it truly came down to a life-or-death struggle, he wondered whether he'd actually be able to do it or not.
And then a monster turns up and then they can't.
As it would turn out, Derek would have to wonder no longer, as the displacement incident would place a Terminator boar right in the garden where Ariel was sitting. Since both her and Luke were occupied in conversation though, neither had noticed this D-rank monster appear behind them. Only Derek saw it as he emerged back to the gardens from the lavatory. At first he believed this to be the work of the nobles he'd just overheard, but no nobleman was capable of smuggling such an enormous beast here. Especially not to the heart of the palace like this.
Wow, that was cool.
Regardless of what little sense it made though, the only thing that mattered now was ensuring Ariel's safety. A task we saw cost his life. His initial shout did alert the princess that the boar was coming, but the only thing he could do after was place himself between her and the monster, leading to the fatal blow that would shatter his ribs and crush his organs.
Goddamn.
Then, right after having his spine shattered on the wall 5 meters away, that's when Derek knew that he was dying. He would look around to see if Ariel was safe, but he was surprised to see that she was actually running towards him. She had disregarded everything else and went straight to hold the guardian mage that just protected her. So, as she held the dying Derek in her arms, his final words were to take the throne and make Asada into a better country, all while praying to Saint Millis in hopes that some miracle would keep the princess alive. He didn't expect his prayers to work, but when they were actually answered by the angel who'd fallen from the sky, Derek's heart filled with peace knowing that Ariel was safe now.
Boom.
He knew there was still
So
hope
safe.
for the country that only Ariel could save. So, with the Fatoa incident costing this young mage his life, in return it provided Ariel with a new and different purpose. Perhaps she really could make the change that Derek envisioned. Perhaps she could strengthen Asada to the point it could conquer the entire continent. If there was any person who could achieve it, It was the princess that this guardian mage had just died for, bringing us to the end of this turning point for Ariel. So, with that being what you need to know about Ariel, the next episode will cover the rest with Fitz, then once that's done we can finally get to episode 1.
Right, so I was wondering what you meant by part 1. Right, so then we're going to cover all the stuff that was cut out with Fitz, and then we're going to... Right, cool.
It should only be a few days before each of those videos are out. Until then though, if you want to know the cut content a little bit earlier, then I actually discuss all of it on Twitch the day it comes out on Sundays.
Oh, cool.
So be sure to follow me there if you want to see me talk about Mushoku Tensei live. We also give away a few goodies every now and then.
Yo.
But anyway, as always, thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this type of anime content, then you already know what to do. So, until next time, ciao!
Class! Cut content is back! Mushoku Tensei is back! Everything is good! I love it. I absolutely love it. That was really cool to see, and I like that he's taking his time with it, and there's going to be a part 2 covering Fitz, because there has to be stuff cut out from Fitz stuff like that. And then episode 1, and then, good times. I love cut content videos. And yeah, awesome. Make sure you check out my Etsy shop. Link is in the description for t-shirts and hoodies that I have designed. And thank you to my patrons. If you want to have your name at the end of every video I upload, link is in the description to the Patreon page. $1 a month for the last spot channel is greatly appreciated. Thank you for that. And thank you all for watching. What do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of this? Click like, subscribe if you haven't already. Leave comments down below. Let me know what I should watch or discuss in future videos. I'll see you guys next time.